The following podcast is intended only for listeners who are intent on growing the business. Welcome to Innovate Marketing, where we are bringing you interviews with the brands, the influencers, and the nonprofits that are making waves and growing business. We are brought to you by mypodcast.media. MyPodcast.media produces high-quality podcasts that authentically connect you to your ideal audience. And now, I'd like to introduce you to your host for Innovate Marketing, Sherry Peak.
Hello, and welcome to Innovate Marketing. And today our guest is Nikki Lewallen Gregory, and she is the Chief Meaningful Work Officer with People Forward Network. Welcome, Nikki.
Thank you, Sherry. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you here and just to share in this conversation, as I think it'd be very relevant and fitting for people today as they're looking at their career, future choices, and most importantly, the current employment state that we're in as a country, Nikki. And I just want to spend some time talking to you about People Forward Network. So can you tell us a little bit about what that is and the vision that inspired the People Forward Network?
Yeah, absolutely. I love talking about this. It's like my entire life's work compiled into this one thing that I get to do every day, that half of the days I say, gosh, I just feel like I got to pinch myself. Do I get to do this? It's so amazing. So People Forward Network is a global community of leaders that share the same mindset or way of being around leading people first with a people first style. And we typically serve B2B organizations, leaders, to help them advance their efforts around culture and driving employee engagement scores and attracting, the types of people that are going to help them grow their business and building diversity initiatives, all those things that today are so important to help these workplaces build thriving organizations where people thrive and experience meaningful work. So we provide resources and connections to help advance those leaders.
Why was that important to you to start a business such as this?
Yeah. So I love to tell people, if you have a young person in your life that is like a teenager or maybe even a little bit younger, help them understand themselves and do like an assessment of themselves at an early age, so that it's not like, well, what do you want to do when you get older? And a lot of people don't know. And you go to college and you're down this path and you've paid, 4 years, in my case, 6 years for college before I did some assessments that helped me to understand like really how I'm wired and where my strengths are. We all have God-given strengths and unique things, and to know that early is so important. But I didn't learn that until after 6 years in college, had my master's degree. I knew I wanted to help people, and so I went down a path of becoming a mental health therapist. Once I was wrapping up my graduate degree, I was in my fourth internship experience and happened to finally land somewhere that helped me to, it's such a, I feel, God thing that I landed at this final place, because the first 3 internships, I was like, nope. It taught me what I didn't want to do. And then I landed at an employee assistance program, an EAP, they call those a lot of times. And what that is employers pay to have, counseling and coaching services for employees as a supplement to their benefit plan. So like when you're going through grief and loss or a divorce or something, like they have a third party outlet. Or if you're like, I really want to level up, I want to be a better leader, I want to, be a better parent, you can go to these services to really help you. I really thrived in that space. And I'm like, this is so cool. But wait a second, employers pay for this for their people? I never even knew there was anything out there like that. And bottom line, there's a lot of story to it. I got on the path of saying, I want to use the strengths that I found out through all of this, which I can talk a little bit more about in a minute, to impact meaningful work experiences. Because I believe that when we contribute to the world through our work, which is a majority of our time, we are better in every other area, better parent, better community member, and all of those things. So that's just a little bit of the backstory.
Wow. I think that's so good. I like the whole people first leaders, and you mentioned how that where leadership and people first leadership are synonymous. So can you go a little bit more into that? Because leadership, that's a favorite subject of mine. So I'd love to hear what you have to say just around that right there in leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, to put it very, very blunt, as a leader, your job is to advance people and you to help people grow. Leader leading other people. How many times do leaders get caught up in the title or the control or those things that, those things are not a leader. And when you think people first, we say it should be synonymous because it's like obviously like it being a leader, that should be the number one priority. However, there isn't the mass population, portion that does operate that way. But I feel like now today, there's such a spotlight on it. It's like, margins are very small on, or margins are very big. Let me say that again. Margins are very big on, the talent needs gap, and people are very selective, like the whole great resignation. People are very selective about where they're going to work now. They're like, hey, COVID showed me that like, I value my family time and I'm not going to work somewhere that I'm not cared for or that I don't have a voice or whatever. So it's really forcing a lot more of that, which is actually pretty great and healthy. But we believe that, that is the way of being. Why would you lead any other way than people first?
I agree with you wholeheartedly with that. Now, how does leadership and the people first leadership, how does that tie into employee engagement?
Yeah, I would say very heavily. I think at the core of employee engagement, if you were to look at a grid and you cut the grid into 4 boxes, right? So there's a rectangle and you get 4 boxes. And in the core of the center, if we're talking employee engagement, there's a heart. And that heart is what's going to bring the 4 of these pieces together, right? And I learned years ago from a Gallup study, just sometimes, models like just latch onto you and you're like, oh, I really like this one. I'm just going to keep it forever. So I'm still talking about it. But these 4 boxes are purpose, status, money, and influence. And I believe that all of those things have to be at play to really experience meaning in our roles. It's like you have to feel that you are purposefully impacting something, right? Like that you're not just like coming there to just, clock the time. There has to be purpose. From a status perspective, I think this is a lot around recognition, and there's a lot of different areas of status, but recognizing someone and helping them advance to the role that they should be in, right? And really pouring into, giving them the accolades and helping build them up. Building people up is in this other category. So purpose, status, money, obviously at play today more than ever. Like comp plans are so hard because there's so much competition. And, in order for us to feel like we could have a purposeful job, but not making enough to even really take care of our family. So therefore we feel like we're not, contributing how we want. And it's this struggle, And then finally, as influence, having the opportunity at any role to feel like, you're on a call or you're in a meeting or you're serving someone at the counter, and to feel that you're really making an impact, like on influencing this person. So that whether that is like they walked away happier, they felt like they were heard, whatever that may be, that you're helping to really influence through the role that you're given. And I think, people first leaders keep the eye on the juggle of all of those things.
I like that you talk about that because I remember employment, the EAP plans and things that the employers used to offer. It seems that a lot of those have gone away today, and they were very instrumental in me building my career and leadership skills. And I do miss some of those opportunities, even in the area that I work. But I think it's so important because, like you said, it really does translate how you feel about your work. It does translate into other areas of your life when we spend so much time at work.
Absolutely.
So I know you're focusing now on growing the People Forward Network. I know that's your mission, that's your passion in doing that. So as a network, you have a website that has some wonderful information tools. You've got a blog section there. You've got podcasts there. You've got some events that you've got coming up, and we'll talk about that. But I want to talk about podcasting because you've really used that as an instrument to kind of share this message and also to bring others into the light of what you're talking about when we talk about people first leaders or even people moving forward.
Yeah.
So your website, let's talk a little bit about there. You've got some wonderful content there. How are you getting this message out to individuals about the People Forward Network? How are you sharing some of that through your podcast? How has that been working for you? Do
Yeah.
you see people coming to the page and all that good stuff?
Yeah, let me take you back just for just a moment when I was sharing with you that I highly recommend that, at a young years, we're helping people understand. So you don't just go into school and then come out and you're like, well, all that college, but that's not what I'm doing. And so many of us do that, right? So when I did get to that fourth practicum or internship experience at the EAP, the lady that owned the company, I worked for an entrepreneurial EAP, which is very rare actually. And she said, have you ever taken a DISC assessment or the Myers-Briggs? I was like, a what? I don't know what you're talking about. And she's like, would you take, these assessments? I kind of have some thoughts about how we can shape your role here. And so I take these assessments and they come back like, screaming loud, flashing sales entrepreneurship. Well, I just got out of 6 years of mental health, counseling, therapy type stuff. And I won't tell too much more of that story, but it was my pivot point. I started to help that company. I did like half of my time therapy, and started to go into a training program for sales to help grow this business. I fell in love with it. And my trajectory from then was really sales and marketing, all intersecting with meaningful work experiences as my why. My strength area is, that sales, marketing, influence, helping businesses do that. But my heart, I would never have left since then, really impacting meaningful work. And so today, how did we get to People Forward Network? Podcasting is what I found 5 years ago to be the best way to build relationships and create maximum content around one activity. So you can record one episode, you can flip the video on, you can then take those episodes, cut them into pieces, you can create blogs, create newsletter content, social posts, right? Every one episode is able to be maximized. And I'm like an efficiency person, like love that. And so 5 years ago was working on a project with a tech company to grow their partnership program. And we were like, how can we show the world the companies we really want to work with, like the true best places to work? How do we work with these CEOs and help them maximize their vision for their culture? And so we built this podcast and started to bring these CEOs onto this show, which I still have, Gut Plus Science, 5 years later, to really be a mentoring platform for other people first type leaders. So one CEO's on there, we have this audience, they're learning from the CEO's failures or, successes or whatever they've done. And it really started to become a mentoring community and help the brand to showcase companies that they love to be brand aligned with. And here's the real big key, to help them build relationships through podcasting. Every time you're doing a podcast, it's a conversation. You're building a relationship with someone else. And so that's a little bit of the backstory, which got us to the vision for People Forward Network, which is now not just one podcast, but lots of podcasts that have different niches, like where one niche is to serve HR leaders and another niche is to help middle managers and another niche is to serve DEI initiatives in business. And that is really like where our website serves, is, all these different disciplines of leaders that impact people first leadership that we refer to as moving people forward. So, now it's like, we use LinkedIn as our main social medium to drive traffic and build connections because that is where our people are. So I'm very, very honed in on the way I do business. And it all starts with focus on the ideal client that your business serves and say no if it's not in that realm. And so it's like, okay, well then do we need to be on Facebook? Do we need to be on Instagram and all of these things? That's not where our people are. I mean, some of them might be, but LinkedIn is where our people are. So we really spend a lot of time there being great content experts, if you will, sharing content that helps to advance these people versus like sharing promotional things like, hey, People Forward Network is, doing this or doing that. It's really content that moves leaders forward and then, shares with them, hey, if you like this, we'd love to have you come visit our website. We have all kinds of downloadable tools and resources, but LinkedIn is one of those main places that we go to drive inbound traffic from the activity that we do there. We also do, bi-monthly minimum email mass emails. So we are, sharing kind of like what's new at People Forward Network, highlighting people, giving shout outs, sharing stories, big storytellers. So in podcasting, that's what you do all the time. And so emails to really highlight things that it's like, hey, if you want to learn more, great, go to our website. So email would be the second way that we're driving people there. And then finally, this is just kind of just in my DNA, we have a lot of partnerships. So a lot of partners that we have agreements, hey, we'd love to share this for you, you share this for us, and it's this win-win. We're targeting that same, I would call it a strategic partnership. We're targeting the same end user. We do different things. Let's add value to each other and share. And that's a lot of how we're driving traffic to our website as well.
With those different modes of driving traffic to your website, how do you measure success to know what you're doing is working?
Yeah. So we do monthly reports. I know we can get better at this for sure. I love data to help make decisions. So I will just say that's one of the reasons why we named my podcast Gut Plus Science. The science is the data side. I feel like you have to have a marriage anywhere where it's like your gut and how you feel and like, oh, I have red flags, then say peace out. Cause like if you've got a red flag, it's, just, telling you the writing's on the wall, but also that data side. And so we pull reports monthly and we look at a large variety of things from, different page traffic levels, right? And if there was a significant change 1 month versus another, we're looking back to see like, what was it that drove people there? We look at click rates on our site. So we have one particular page that's all about the podcast shows that people can go to. Another one that's downloadable resources for tools that people can take advantage of. And really looking at not just like who's going to the page, but then who is clicking, and taking advantage of those things. And then we're taking a look at our pipeline to look at like, how are these numbers comparing to the people we're talking to? And what's the gap there between, who's clicking and the contacts that we're getting or seeing and who we're actually talking to and is in our CRM.
What are some of the things you hope to do with the network? You've got a nice platform, a nice size platform. I've seen the content on your website, lots of free resources there and things that we can listen to while we're driving and stuck in traffic and all that good stuff. So you're steadily growing, gaining new viewers for your content. How do you see the People Forward Network growing in the future? What type of offerings, that are trending do you see you might add to the network?
That's a great question. And it's all in the midst of so much excitement that I am experiencing right now because we're just really getting clear on, where that is as you just keep evolving and growing. But
Yeah.
so we have a lot of different clients that we work with right now, right? We call those partners. That would be different than a strategic partner. Because when I was talking strategic partner, it's like people that you're kind of scratching each other's back and helping each other grow, from a marketing partnership perspective. We have what we call People Forward Network partners, and they cover the gamut of these different disciplines underneath People Forward leadership. Like I was sharing earlier, like employee engagement versus DEI versus talent acquisition, those kinds of disciplines. One side of where we're going is we're going to limit our partners to, there'll be 13 categories. We already have the 13 categories, but we're just trying to figure out who really is the right partner to own each of those categories. And then underneath those partners that own those categories, so let's say leadership development is owned by HRD Advisory Group. Okay, so they own that category. Now, there's different content contributors that can come in. HRD Advisory Group doesn't do every single thing ever for everybody, right? So we help them build partnerships underneath that sub umbrella, if you will. And so we're really limiting the partners that we pour our time and energy into, and then teaching those partners to be great partners to others. So it's kind of like a tiered approach, if you will. That's one side. The other side of what we're doing that is so exciting is we're now building podcasts for internal company efforts. So inside show podcasts for brands, call it, let's just say Starbucks. So Starbucks, they are looking to really be better at communicating with their people and having the CEO reach every employee on a smart device whenever, they want to take advantage of listening to the CEO. So very on-demand oriented and very like work-life integration oriented. Hey, while you're driving or take a walk or whatever, and you're getting the update from the CEO. And employee spotlights. We're also doing like, hey, John in Denver is doing amazing things. Let's highlight John and let's have other people learn from John, and doing a recognition meets mentoring episode with employees regularly, sharing customer stories of how this brand is impacting customers. Like let's tell the greatness of why people chose to work with us. And then finally, the very big bucket is development, people development. So everything from whole life development topics of like how to be a better parent or self-care, to technical talk of like how to build a great cup of coffee and keep it warm, if this was Starbucks or whatever. Also onboarding, you can take a large majority of your onboarding to podcasting. And it's like, oh, you just joined this organization. We want you to be able to, kind of ease in. The first season has 6 episodes. If you can accomplish that in your first month, like do it while you're on a walk, do it in your favorite comfy chair, but really taking onboarding to the on-demand learning as well. So we're so excited. We will be launching lots and lots more of these inside shows because we're seeing the impact of what that does to drive engagement inside of organizations.
You've got a lot going on, and congratulations to you, because it sounds like a service that's well needed as we're looking to help our employees better navigate, if you will, the work environment today. So Nikki, let me ask you, for someone who is interested, hey, sounds like this might be a good thing for me to do. I really want to stretch my reach, for clients, or even just to get my message out. Could you tell us, how would one become a partner or have your assistance in building their podcast or some of those other things that you mentioned?
Yeah. For us, because relationships are really core to how we operate, it really starts with a conversation. And so, to go to the website that we've been referring to, peopleforwardnetwork.com, and, just submit the contact form to reach out. That's a great way. Or if you want to just direct message me, inbox message me on LinkedIn, that is a great way. And just to start a conversation. So everything for us starts at that place, because we're not a great fit for everybody. And not everybody's a great fit for us. So we love to just make sure, in the spirit of true partnership, that we've spent time getting to know each other and making sure that match is there.
That sounds really great. Nikki, what would be one final piece of advice or a story you like to share about someone, maybe that was where you were, a young adult, not quite sure in their career, wanting to make that advancement or change, or it could even be a business owner wanting to up level their business strategy. What would you share with the listeners today?
Yeah. So I've learned the hard lesson, or I've learned the lesson the hard way, that less is more. And I'll give you an example for myself of, I've always done a lot of different things, and done those things okay. Like some people might be like, she's killing it. But to me, like, did I really have the peace around all of those things I was juggling? No. And could I have done things better if I didn't have all of those things? And so this is the first time since the EAP, which was my first job after working in restaurants through college and all of that, that I have done one thing. And, even at the EAP, I was still working in restaurants when I got my first job. I mean, so I've truly never until now done one thing, and professionally. And I just see how, just the opportunity for a peaceful experience working, and the trajectory, let alone the path that I look back and see, like the growth that we're experiencing and how much fun it is, because I can enjoy it and I can really double down on what we're doing, because I don't have all of this clutter. I've definitely submitted 7 W-2s one year. And it's just crazy, like, to do all of these different things. And at the time, you just don't see the writing on the wall then. But I will say, on the other side of it, everything I've ever heard around less is more, pick a niche, or laser focus is so important and powerful.
So true. So true. Well, Nikki, I've enjoyed our time together, and you actually sound like you could be one of the runners for the upcoming award ceremony that you have coming up. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. Oh my gosh. I'm so glad that you asked about that too. So prior to People Forward Network becoming a thing, like back when I was telling you about the first podcast that we recorded and why we were doing it, was to highlight CEOs and the great workplaces. You know, what was it that you've learned? You know, you're not perfect, but like you look like you're doing great things. Let's hear your story. And ever since I started to get this vision with my friend Rachel for People Forward Network to become a thing, I was like, I want to tell stories about these workplaces that they're really driven just by the story and the walk versus like competition and getting this award and, you know, really just recognizing people through their stories and awarding them for their story. So when people are there, it's like, it's not necessarily like, oh, we got 70% of people to vote by Friday and all this like gamification to it. It's just simply stories that are of greatness that illustrate people first or people forward leaders. And those people that sit there and listen to the awards, they're jotting notes like crazy. They're like, I should try that. Oh, I want to follow up with this person and learn from them. And that is what we're finally bringing to life. So this is the first awards. It's our inaugural. It's the People Forward Impact Awards. And we're just so excited to see what happens with this first year.
Could you share the date and how people, it's going to be a virtual award ceremony. Is that correct?
It is. However, for this first year, it is just limited to these VIP invites only based on our partners because we're trying a new platform. So this first year, it isn't an open forum, but we can't wait to see how it goes. It's like a test year and all of that. And then we'll be sharing lots of goodies afterwards for everyone to participate in hearing the stories.
Nikki, final thoughts before we end our time today.
Spend time in reflection and using assessments to really understand who you are and never stop that journey. It's an ever evolving thing. We change, you know, it's not like the assessment that you did when you were 22 is exactly what it is when you're 40. So always be doing that introspective deep dive to really understand who you are and tap into your superpowers or your strengths. Number 2 is, you know, stay focused on the things that bring you meaning in life, you know? And so those things change and it's your job to design your life and to get really clear on what those are, because without clarity, without vision, people perish, right? You have to have vision for your own life. And so you have to know who you are and what your strengths are and tap into those, but you got to know what you want. And as life evolves and you get older and you change and you learn, that has to be a constant effort, like at minimum once a quarter. Spend time with yourself, getting clear. I use a process called the life wheel, and it helps me to get really clear. My husband and I do this together. And so I'm happy to share more on that as well. My husband and I are getting ready to launch a podcast. The trailer goes live next week. It's called Addicted to Betterment. And it is really tapping into this, what I was just sharing with you about design the life experience that brings you the most meaning. And we all have different buckets that, you know, or pieces of pie in the life wheel, model that bring it all together. And we have to not only design that, but then work on it and take action and be accountable to that. And so, you know, if you're right now just like frustrated with your job, frustrated with how things are going, or you just haven't been feeling good, you know, I think a lot of it is really looking at what have you designed and what are you working on, you know, and of course, engaging doctors to help or engaging friends to help, but you have to get really clear first and then design what that looks like and then go after it and look for the help that, you know, ties into that. So that's a soapbox for something I could talk about for hours, but yeah, podcast coming soon.
We'll have to have you come back and share more. We'll have to have you come back and share more. We'd love to hear more from you, Nikki. We've absolutely enjoyed our time with you today, learning more about you and the work that you do with People Forward Network. And we just want to say we wish you all the best in your future endeavors. And please come back and join us anytime. So ladies and gentlemen, this has been Miss Nikki Lewallen Gregory, and she is the Chief Meaningful Work Officer for People Forward Network. Thank you for joining us, Nikki.
Oh, thank you so much, Sherry. Really appreciated the time. It was a lot of fun.
That brings us to the close of this edition of Innovate Marketing. We're glad you tuned in. Innovate Marketing is brought to you by MyPodcast.media. MyPodcast.media produces podcasts for brands, influencers, and nonprofits. Find us online at MyPodcast.media. Your producer for Innovate Marketing is Beth Freed. executive producer Sean Neal, and your host is Sherry Peak. We'll see you next time. Be sure to tune in.